Hello everybody, and today this is the last day of Cambridge Back to School online experience. So welcome to the final session from Herbert Puchta, the author of Cambridge University Press materials, teacher trainer, professor, and just wonderful speaker whose webinars are worth canceling everything else but listening to them. And my name is Tatiana Shelepko. I'm Cambridge University Press CLT consultant. I will tell you a little information about the course which will be taken for examples in the following talk from Herbert. And before we start, I would like to remind you that you will receive your certificates at the end of the webinar or within a few days after the webinar. So make sure to check your incoming mailbox, but also the junk email box. I will now move to questions. So I can see people here from Dnipro, Kolomia, Ivano-Frankivsk. Okay, a lot of hellos, a lot of greetings. Nice to see you all. And it looks like you can see us, you can see the screen, you can hear us. In case you have any problems, you can type here in the Q&A box. Unfortunately, the general chat box is not available for us, but I can see your questions. Once you type them, I will try to respond. So, a little bit of the information what we are doing with the Linguist company. Cambridge University Press and the Linguist company have been working together for 10 years in Ukraine, and we were talking about what we're doing for new Ukrainian school. We also do a lot of things for secondary school, for adults, a lot of supplementary materials that we provide at our Linguist website, and Linguist is the official distributor of Cambridge University Press. So in case you want to learn more, you can contact anybody from the Linguist company, and you will receive the contact details in your thank you letter together with the certificate and the recording of this video. And also what we're doing is a loyalty program, Cambridge University Press Educational Partner. This program has been working for 4 years now in 19 regions in Ukraine. We've got 33 educational partners last year, and we've got plus 7 new educational partners just throughout the summer, and more of them are coming. So in case you want to become educational partner of Cambridge University Press, contact me to learn more details, and that's it. Think is the course written by Herbert Puchta, and there is not much time, so I will try to be as brief as possible. Think is not only about language, even though language there is one of the focus. It's still not the main focus, because it's about critical thinking, creative thinking, and developing the whole learner. And the author of the book, Herbert Puchta, designed it in such a way that the language becomes an instrument for learning something more than just English, and in the context, students learn how to think, how to live, how to develop their own values as a human being, as a social being. There are loads of topics in things that are really catchy for teenagers, and you can see here that there are different sections that are to develop their different life skills. What's important these days that there is a great digital support for things. For example, Presentation Plus and Cambridge Cambridge Learners Management System with all the interactive materials, with exam preparation integrated into the course itself, into the print version, but also loads of tests in the digital platform. There are 6 levels of this course, and they cover language levels from A1 to C1. You can see the list of components, and if you are interested in digitalizing your learning, you should check the student's book with online workbook for Think. You can find more information at this website. You can see the link at the top of the slide, and you will also have it in your thank you letter. But I would like to stop a little bit closer on this digital support. Still very brief. We've got the Presentation Plus component, which is an interactive course. There is the student's book, activity book, all the videos, all the audios, and all the supplementary material for teachers in this program, which you install to your computer, and you can share your screen and work with students remotely, or you can demonstrate the screen in the classroom in case we still have offline learning, and loads of supplementary materials like literature, tests, grammar, other worksheets for communication, lexical revisions, and so on are available from Presentation Plus and also from the platform. Why to use Presentation Plus? It makes the lessons interactive, it helps you as the teacher, it helps students to see where exactly they're going and how the lesson is happening, and it motivates. If we are talking about students' independence, it's great to use the digital platform with online workbook or with just online practice that is available with the print version of the workbook. And there is revision, there are games, there are projects, and to learn more you can always contact me and I will demonstrate how exactly all of these things work. Here on the slide you can see what the platform looks like, so please make sure if you do use Think course, make sure you've checked the platform or contacted me to learn how exactly to do this. And again, on the platform you will find all the teachers' resources available for Think. But also my favorite thing, this is something I did as a teacher before the lessons. for 4 or 3 hours creating all the animations in the presentations, grammar presentations. These ones are ready-made on the platform. You can just download the PowerPoint presentation. You can also edit it if you need, and this is what it looks like. This grammar presentation can fill 30 minutes time of your lesson, so please make sure you checked it. If you use Thing, if you don't, that's a great possibility to use this course with all the supplementary materials I'm showing right now. And one more thing for those teachers who work at primary school, Ukrainian School based on the new Ukrainian School project, the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, together with British Council, Cambridge University Press, and Cambridge Assessment English, developed the new Ukrainian School English platform for teachers. And for now, over 3,000 teachers received their 5-hour certificates at this platform on the second module. So if you haven't done it yet, please check the second module there. It's not the one that has been there in 2018. It's the new module that will add 5 hours of your professional development. Check it out. And Cambridge is providing this Be Ready for Everything with Cambridge campaign, which helps teachers, supports teachers, and you can find out what's available from the representative of the linguist company in Ukraine. For example, these are how to teach remotely with guides, which you can get for Think particularly, but also for all other Cambridge courses. And the one for Quick Minds, together with the video lessons, is at Publishing Linguist UA, the rest at cambridge.org. For more information, you can contact me, and you will receive my contact details in the thank you letter together with the certificates. I'm repeating this for those who just joined. Together with the certificates that will be sent to you from this platform within a few days after the webinar. And here is the same information on the slide. So please make sure you check junk mail box as well to receive your certificates. And I was as brief as I could, so I'm giving the word to Herbert Puchta, the author of Think course, the author of Quick Minds, Super Safari, Empower, teacher trainer, and a wonderful speaker, Herbert Puchta. I'm sharing the screen with you.
Okay. Show my screen. All right. Just a moment. Well, let me just. Can you see the presentation?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We can
good.
see the presentation. I'm not sure whether we can see. Yes, we can see you. We can see the presentation. In case there are questions, we will answer all the questions at the end of the session. If there are feedback from teachers, you can ask me for assistance. I will be here all the time.
Lovely.
Thank you, and I'm out.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Tetiana, for your kind introduction, for the lovely things you said about myself. I really appreciate. And I would like to welcome you, the colleagues, the participants, taking part in this webinar. This is going to be about teaching teenagers. I will not give you a presentation of Think. This is not a commercial session. I will be talking about some, I believe, highly effective ways of using texts, and we'll be focusing on two texts from Think, two different text genres. One is what we call a culture text, and the other one is a conversation. It's one of those photo stories. But before we go into that, I would like to look at the issue of texts and at the challenge of getting students to read texts efficiently from a wider perspective, so to speak. In order to get our own thinking going, I'd like to invite you to take part in a little experiment. The experiment is me presenting a short text in a rather unusual way. You're only going to see the text word for word. So each slide you will see will contain one word from the text. My challenge for you is, my task for you is to read the text as we go along and try and remember as much as possible from the text you're reading. I hope the task is clear. We are now starting. Here we go. I know it's a strange feeling, but keep going, please. Okay, here we go. Before we look any further, can you just quickly type into the chat box, and Tetiana is going to read this out because I can't see the chat box, unfortunately. So just type in any associations, any feelings, any thoughts you've had while being engaged in this little experiment.
Okay, I'm back here. I will just tell you how I felt. I felt like I'm walking, and every time there is a wall, I have to move, you know, and then walk further. So yeah, like stumbling into something every little second. So
Okay.
one of the feedbacks I've got from Ludmila, interesting. Valentina says it's weird.
Yes.
Strong wish to grasp the whole text. Says
Okay.
Julia felt impatient.
Yes.
Veronica, challenging. Oksana says that she felt like probably students feel.
Okay.
Forgot previous information
Yes.
right away, Elena. Was trying to read too fast.
Yeah.
Quite a long time to read this short text. It was so annoying.
Exactly. Thank you so much. We could go on, but I think what you're saying or what you've said here are actually very important thoughts. Let's quickly look at the text again. This is the text that I asked you to read, and it's a very short text actually. Why is fluency important to reading comprehension? A non-fluent reader puts a large amount of effort into decoding words. By the time such a reader finishes a sentence, he or she may forget what the sentence was even about. Comprehension is blocked because the process of decoding takes so much time and effort. The short-term memory can't grasp the fragmented input of information. By contrast, a fluent reader reads in smooth and continuous phrases, and the brain can retain and comprehend what is read. And I don't know who said it, but it's very important that this feeling that some of us have in an activity like this, where we get impatient, where we want to go on, that comes from the fact that we are, of course, fluent readers, and we are used to reading a piece of text in a smooth and fluent and continuous kind of a process. While students who have troubles reading, students who have problems reading, will actually read in a very slow movement. And in this case, and this is the tragic fact about being a slow and poor reader, that it's not only the reading process itself that is slow if they are poor readers, it's of course also the rate of comprehension and memory that suffers badly. So students who have this problem will not only not enjoy reading, they will also have a problem with reading efficiently, of course. And there is only one way we can help our students to overcome this, and this is read. We often talk about the importance of fluency when it comes to speaking, but of course fluency is a quality that is absolutely important in developing reading skills too. And all the other skills, think of writing, think of listening. Fluency is a quality that is important in all these areas. Now, these, I assume, are two terms that you're well familiar with: extensive reading versus intensive reading. Just a few questions just to refresh your memory, so we can see we're all on the same page here. there's a few questions. Could you just type in your answers, and Tetiana is going to read them out again. I think 1 or 2 word answers will actually do. First question, which of the two is usually done in the classroom? Number 1, extensive reading. Number 2, intensive reading. Which of the two is usually done in the classroom?
Back
Tetiana?
here. I think there is a little a little delay.
Delay, okay, sure.
All right, I've got both. And most answers intensive.
Right. Well, maybe some of us occasionally do a bit of extensive reading in the classroom, but extensive reading is usually the kind of reading that is done at home, while intensive reading is the kind of reading process that we normally develop in the classroom, which is usually based on more challenging texts. 1, extensive reading, 2, intensive reading.
Okay, I'm back again. Which one is more challenging?
Not which is more challenging, but which is the one that is based on more challenging texts. So
Okay.
where normally are the texts that students are supposed to read more challenging? When they do extensive, when they do intensive reading, usually.
I think I have even number of all the answers. Like 1, 2, and both. Okay.
Okay, that is interesting. Okay, well, let me just say a few words here.
Extensive. You just say
Okay,
extensive.
let's wait a little bit. Let's keep this open for a moment. Let's have a look at the next one first, which is usually about reading for fun or reading for entertainment. 1, extensive reading, or 2, intensive reading.
Okay, takes a little time. The third question. And we have here.
Is it 1, extensive reading, or is it 2, intensive reading? Your answer.
1.
Okay, interesting. We'll keep this open too. Which is usually about shorter texts? Extensive reading or intensive reading?
There are different answers anyways, and it looks like the same amount of 1 and 2. Okay, I've got a lot of 2s now.
Okay, a lot of 2s. Give me just one moment. I'll just grab a book from my shelf here. Now, let me say a few words about each of these 4 questions. Well, extensive reading, I think the label extensive suggests that this is the kind of reading that is extended over a longer period of time. I've just grabbed a book by Philip Pullman. I don't know if anybody has read it, The Golden Compass, which is actually part of his trilogy, His Dark Materials. Quite an interesting book that I've noticed teenagers whose reading skills are already well developed love reading. Now, this book, or any book that we read for fun, for entertainment, that's usually what we call extensive reading. Okay, what is very, very important is that this cannot be done in the classroom, because we would take all the time of the world to read a book like this in the classroom. So extensive reading is to be done at home in the students' pastime, and hopefully we'll be able to motivate our students to become readers in the new language. This is also kind of a hint already why the more challenging texts, the texts you have in a course book like Think, would be the extensive reading text, because often, as you know, in course books we use the texts to introduce new language, we introduce new grammar, we introduce new lexes, and this is what we usually do in course book texts. So this is about intensive reading. While ideally extensive reading should be a bit easier, the texts should not be too challenging, because if a student actually finds it difficult to decode meaning when they're reading a novel, then the reading process might actually be rather painful for the students. Okay, so extensive reading is done at home, intensive at class. More challenging texts are usually intensive reading texts. Reading for fun, reading for entertainment is about extensive texts, longer texts, and the shorter texts are usually about intensive texts. And which is usually about reading a text only once. Well, that's again the long text, the extensive reading text. I mean, some people, when they like a novel a lot, they would read it a second, maybe even a third time. But usually when we read sort of lighter novels, say a thriller or something like that, we read it only once, okay? We read it for gist. We don't normally go through a text several times. While I think when it comes to texts in the classroom, extensive reading texts, texts like this one here, or these 4 shorter texts, these are read because they offer not just information, or sometimes also entertainment. I mean, this is, as you can see, a series of texts about places, beautiful places the world over that are in serious danger because of global warming and the fact that our Earth has become such a fragile place. So we want students to read such texts. We want them to think about these texts. We want them also to use the language in such texts for their own purposes. For writing, for example, for developing their speaking skills, for developing their grammar and their lexical knowledge, and so on and so forth. So this session today is now actually going to focus on intensive reading and not so much on extensive reading, okay? So let's have a quick look at this text here. We have 4 texts. Let's just look at one. The Himalayas. So it says, read and listen to the article. What animals does it mention? Stop before it's too late. The Himalayas, why should we care? The Himalayan mountains in South Central Asia contain many of the world's tallest peaks, including Mount Everest. They also contain the biggest number of glaciers after the North and South Poles. 3 of the greatest rivers in the world start from these mountains: the Ganges, the Indus, and the Yangtze. These rivers provide water to 1 billion people in Asia. what's happening? The biggest danger to the Himalayas is global warming, which is melting the glaciers fast. There's also a huge problem with deforestation in the mountains. Many species of animals, such as the tiger, the rhino, and the snow leopard, are in danger. Now, as you can see here, what we're doing here is students are actually, first of all, given a short task. Number one, look at the pictures. Do you know what this is? So they can't see a lot, but they can see these texts are about, the world of nature, most probably. And then they read the texts very briefly, and they find out what animals get mentioned in the texts, okay? Then number three, we gradually start looking at details, yeah? Work in pairs, say what these numbers in the article refer to. And number four, speaking, can you think of any other areas of the world that are in danger from environmental damage? We carry on, we look at some words in the text, in this case, the words in bold, like peaks and glaciers and global warming and fragile and organism. And students are supposed to match the words in bold in the article with the definitions here in number 5. This is all if you want some kind of preparatory work for an article that students are going to write for an imaginary or a real school magazine about another place that is actually in danger. And as you can see, there is one more story here, one more article, the sad story of a once beautiful river. And they are again guided through this text to help them with their comprehension, but also to help them with understanding the structure of such a text. Number 4 down here, if you can see this, says the article has 4 paragraphs. Which of them? So they learn to match the content of each of the paragraphs with a short summary before they then choose another environmental problem, one of the 2 that is suggested there, and they're supposed to write a short text. So as you can see, the purpose of intensive reading is very, very different from extensive reading, where basically what we want is we want to be entertained, we want to be we want to have fun while reading a novel. We want to relax, we want to have a good time basically reading. While here, this is of course serious work. This is serious language work and aims at helping students with the development of their own productive and receptive skills. Forget about this slide here. We can't have a pair work activity. I forgot to take this out. The main purpose of the Think Culture texts and many other texts in Think, all the texts that are about that are informative, are often inform students about content that is far away from their own life situation, content that has to do with the life traditions, the cultural habits of people living in other countries, living in other cultures, living on other continents. And so the main purpose of the culture texts there are not so much, but also to a certain extent to give students information. The main purpose really is to give students information and get them to think about what is the same and what is different for themselves in their own life situation. Okay, so when they read about children, young people in another country, when they read about environmental situations in other cultures, in other countries, and so on and so forth, they almost inevitably will start thinking about, well, you know, I mean, the Galapagos are far away from me, but what is the situation in my own country? What is the situation where I live? What could people in my own country, in my own culture do to help the environment, and so on and so forth? Okay, and the question is, of course, what are the key challenges? What do students find difficult when it comes to understanding such texts? Well, first of all, of course, we have a language issue. So we need to make sure that students have, on the one hand, an understanding of the key lexis and maybe introduce some vocabulary, not all the new words, but the words without which students couldn't understand the content of such a text. Introduce them before students start reading. And then some students find it difficult to focus their attention, which is why it's very, very important we ask them questions, general questions first, so they browse through the text and try to get a basic understanding of what the text is all about. We also need to teach them to look at the genre. We need to get them to look at the text, the pictures, and the kind of text genre, the headlines and the subheaders. So students begin to deduce meaning not only from the language in a text, but also from the text genre itself. This, of course, brings us to a question which I would like to ask you. You know, when you think of a text like this, would you prefer getting your students to read it out aloud, or would you want them to read the text silently? Can you just type in aloud or silently into the chat box so we can see what answers we get there? Tatiana, over to you.
Okay.
Good. I'm curious.
And the very first one, silently.
Great.
Okay, now it's even. 3 silently, 3
okay.
aloud.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's even.
Now it's what? Sorry.
It's even. Depends on the aim, somebody says.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. Yeah.
One is reading aloud, another others silently.
Okay. Good. Well, let me say a few words about that. This is a question that is still frequently discussed among colleagues. What's better, getting students to read out aloud or reading silently? And I think what we need to do is we need to think a little bit about when we read texts out aloud in real life, and when in real life we read texts silently. Well, in real life, we don't read out texts aloud very often, do we? If you are a father or a mother of a young child, or a grandfather like me, then you would read out a text to your child or to your grandchild or to your children, grandchildren, aloud. When you are a teacher, you sometimes read out texts aloud. But in real life, we don't often read out texts aloud. Especially, we would never read out a text aloud when everybody else has the same text. Now imagine you're getting on a train and you are in the same train compartment with, say, 5 other people, and each of you has bought the same newspaper. Now, you wouldn't sit down and wait for somebody to say, okay, could you over there please start reading the first text now, would you? We would, in 100% of all the cases, when we all have the same text, we would definitely not read it out aloud to one another. We would read it silently. We do read out aloud, for example, from newspapers when you're having, I don't know, a Sunday morning breakfast, and then you're sitting there with your partner, with your wife, with your husband, and then he or she has found something interesting in the newspaper and says, oh wow, isn't that amazing? And since you don't have the same newspaper in front of you, he or she starts reading this text out to you to give you information. So reading out aloud is basically about communicating content to somebody else who doesn't have the same text in front of them. Now, in a school and in a classroom, I'm not against getting students to read out aloud if we have the right purpose. If, for example, we get students to write a story as a homework, then each of them will have a different story. Then what we will want them to do occasionally is we will want them to read out their stories to the others, maybe in groups, where they then decide which is the best story in our group, and each group reads out one story to the whole class. That's when reading out aloud is really, really, really a meaningful activity. And the other thing we must not forget, when people read out aloud, even professional readers, like people doing news programs on television, even they carefully look at the texts beforehand. So when we read out a text aloud, we usually look at it beforehand. We make sure we know how to pronounce everything. We make sure we understand what this is all about, and then we read out. So we should always give students a bit of time before reading out aloud to look through the text and then ask the teacher questions. The teacher comes to the student, helps them individually, and helps them to with pronunciation and intonation. The one other thing I wanted to mention also is that when we are reading out aloud, we're normally not focused on decoding meaning. In other words, when we're reading out aloud, we're focusing on pronunciation and intonation, and we want to make sure that the listening experience is an interesting experience to the people listening to us. We don't normally extract meaning at the same time. We want to be good readers. This is a good point to look at how we make meaning when we read. Well, reading is about a multitude of interactive processes. First of all, between the reader and the text. It's not a linear process. Especially when we have a more complex text, like a piece of intensive reading text, then we will constantly go back and forth to the text and our perception of the text. And creating meaning is a constructive process. When we read the same piece of text, what we get out of the same piece of text is often different. We will create different images in our minds. We will have different associations depending on our own life experiences, on our own knowledge of the world. Readers are different as far as their knowledge of the world is concerned, their language level, their life experiences, their emotions. their expectations, etc., etc., etc. When you have 25 students in front of you, you have 25 different students and people and human beings in front of you. And what two people get out of the text is never the same. Now, I'll take the last 10 minutes of this session to present a few powerful activities. The first one is an activity that helps to train collocations. Collocations, as you I'm sure know, are words or phrases which are often used with other words or phrases in a way that sounds correct to people who have spoken the language all their lives. So, as you know, make your homework is not correct. Do your homework is correct. Why this is the case? Well, we don't know. This is just how language has developed over the centuries, but we know that do and homework collocate, while make and homework don't collocate. Helping students to have a good bank of collocations up in their mind is very, very useful. So I'm going to ask you now to have a look at the next piece of text and read this intensively. Try to commit as much language as possible from this text to your memory. I'll give you a minute. Okay, thank you. Now, I suggest that you do this. What will often happens is that teachers don't go back. They don't revisit texts they have already worked on with their students. It's almost like having done a text means, in the course book, means this text is done and dusted, okay? I believe that we should actually go back, we should revisit the texts also after having done the activities in the course book, and then work on these texts later, for example, to get students to remember collocations. So what I would say now to my students is close your books, and then I would present them the same text. And in this text, I have gapped a number of words, and I want them in pairs maybe, or individually. We don't have the time to really do this now, but as you know, the text is the Himalayas. Why should we care? Exactly, etc., etc., etc. So we work on the text, we make it memorable to our students. This is another one, and it's called the chunk or collocations generator. I love this activity. I do it often. It seems very easy when I present it now, but it can actually be very, very challenging. I'll give you 30 seconds. Please read this text very quickly. Okay, here we go. So what I've done here is I've written down sentences from the text. I've taken out one word from each sentence. And as you can see, there is no gap. So students don't know where it goes, where it should go. They have to think, they have to remember the text. This can be quite challenging cognitively for some students. So here we have the Galapagos Islands, are one of the most amazing places on earth, and of course it is one of the most amazing places on earth. The islands are 1,000 kilometers from Ecuador in the Pacific, and the right thing is the tiny islands, etc., etc., etc. Okay, let's take a few minutes to look at another genre, photo stories. The photo stories in Think usually, or all of them, are actually about helping students understand and learn to use conversational skills. And of course, when it comes to conversational skills, one of the things that is very important are those phrases for fluency. You know, those phrases for fluency, they are the lubricants of spoken interaction in English. So students who have a good command of such phrases, they will sound very, very fluent. They will sound much better speakers. So let's just look at the first two paragraphs of this photo story titled Weekend Plans. Friday morning, I can't wait for the weekend, Luke says, nor can I. Only one more day of school to go. Thank goodness I'm about to go crazy in that classroom. I know what you mean. And the weather is going to be nice this weekend. I checked the forecast. So did I. Bit cloudy, but no rain. Let's have a picnic. What do you reckon, Ryan? I think it's a great idea. So do I. But I'm going to spend the day with my cousin. Oh no, that's a shame. Hey, there's nothing wrong with my cousin. Oh, come on, Ryan, you know what I mean. So if you look at the phrases for fluency, we have thank goodness, what do you reckon, that's a shame, there's nothing wrong with, lucky you, in other words, etc., etc., etc. We need to help students explain what these mean. We need to help them with understanding, and then we need to work on these phrases by getting students to use them in different contexts. We also need to work with our students on language functions, like in this case, agreeing. And also what we do in connection with the photo stories, we focus on making students word wise, okay? And often we focus on small words, like in this case, phrases with about. So these words, they are often kind of very, very important because they help to form what we call lexicogrammatical chunks of language. So students, again, who have a good knowledge of these chunks will sound very, very fluent, okay? And then we get students to actually do some speaking using the language they've learned. Now, just one little activity for you before we finish, and that is get students to read these photo stories, write down the phrases for fluency, but write them down in jumbled order. So phrases for fluency like these ones, I've done this here. Here are the phrases from this text. And now I want them to work in pairs and to write them down, and they just need to write the letters in the right order, in the order they occur in the conversation, okay? That's a very powerful activity because students need to go in their minds through the conversations again, and that helps to remember the phrases, to remember language, and it helps them with their own speaking capabilities, draws attention to lexical chunks. One last quick activity, it's a favorite of mine, and I hope you don't mind a little fun text here. What I have written down is, I've written down a text. The text is actually a bit longer, okay? It's one sentence, a longer sentence. And it says, Herbert Puchta has given seminars in many countries of the world. Working with teachers in Ukraine, however, is always very special for him, probably because of the charm of the ladies. I hope I'm making myself popular. Now, what I'm asking you to do now is, I'm asking you, and we can't really do this well, I'm asking you to actually ask me questions about this text. So whenever you ask me a question that has an answer that is a direct piece of language or word in the text, I have to delete it from my text. And the purpose is for you to completely delete the text, okay? So please type in a question about the text. Tatiana will read it out to me, and I will then make sure that I delete whatever it is that would be the answer to your question. Okay, Tatiana, ready?
Yes, I am. I'm here. Still a delay here.
Okay.
Okay. Could you repeat the question?
Yes. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm a student. I would say, what has Herbert Puchta given in many countries of the world? So
we've got questions. Sorry.
I would delete.
I thought maybe it was not delayed.
Here we go. Yeah.
Okay. There is a question. What is one of the countries where Mr. Puchta has given seminars?
Oops. Sorry about this. I took the wrong color. This one. Okay.
What did you do in many countries of the world?
Working with pictures is not the correct answer. It has to be linguistically correct also.
Who has given seminars?
Yes, I thought you would kill me off first, of course, etc., etc., etc. This, I can tell you, is great fun. You can use it with any content. Students are eager to kill, quote unquote, your text. It's good fun. Very often in the end, you will have words like the or for, and then students have to go metagrammatical. So they have to say things like definite article, and you delete, for example, the, and so on and so forth. So this was it. And now, you know, we have a bit of time. If you want to ask some questions, maybe over to you.
I'm here. So in case you have any questions to Herbert Puchta, please type them in the chat. There were several questions throughout the seminar, but I guess all of them were answered.
Okay.
It was a question, something like, should we read aloud or not? But then you came to this point.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Thank you very much for this wonderful webinar, and let's have some little Q&A session. Okay, what's your favorite textbook? Maybe from those written.
Course book? Well,
Yes.
that's easy. That's easy to answer. When it comes to young learners for primary, my current favorite is Superminds and QuickMinds, the same family of course books, and I know that many colleagues in Ukraine are actually using QuickMinds these days. And when it comes to teenagers, and I hope you forgive me for doing a little bit of promotion. I'm holding it upside down. Am I? No. When it comes to teaching teenagers, it's definitely Think, and I'm delighted to hear that some colleagues are starting to use it also now in Ukraine. It's a course book that has become so successful and so popular all over the world, and the feedback we get is just excellent.
Yeah, I shouldn't say these things, but this is my favorite course book too, Think, because
you should say it. You should say it. I'm joking.
Well, I have to have the same opinion about any Cambridge book, but Think is something that I feel like, oh my God, why don't I live these days to be a student and to be taught with this book?
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is something that really works on the whole learner. Okay, what do you think about online learning, about remote learning?
Well, it's something that, as we know, was the only way learning and teaching could happen. You know, before the summer, in the months leading up to the summer holidays. Let's hope that not too many kids and teachers will have to do teaching and learning online only in the autumn and in the winter. But when it comes to teaching these days, of course, because of the technology that is available, things are a little bit easier than, you know, I mean, just think back maybe 20 years ago, the educational world would have broken down because we didn't have online learning. At least we have online learning now. If you are interested, Tatiana, I gave actually, I think 2 webinars on online teaching and online learning for Cambridge.
Yeah, I've seen them.
You've seen them. So maybe if colleagues are interested, you can point them in the direction, because this is something that you know many colleagues are keen to hear. Actually, the one seminar I gave, the one webinar, had 10,000 participants from all over the world. So this shows, you know, how important the topic is for many colleagues around the world. And I just like to mention this very briefly. I'm currently also teaching a group of primary kids myself, because my grandson is one of the learners in that class. So since I don't do any traveling at the moment, I go to their school 3 times a week and I teach them. And of course, I also had to teach them online. So it was a fascinating experience for me myself. It's something where I learned a lot from myself also in terms of practical methodology.
That's great. Yeah, looks like it's not only about digital literacy, but about methodology in general.
Yes.
Okay, another question. Let's see. Do we have? Let's have maybe 3-4 minutes. There is a quick question. What book are you currently reading, and what would you advise? What would you recommend I read?
My own reading?
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because it's a book that I read a long time ago, and I'm reading it again. I've always wanted to read it again, but I never managed to because there were other books to read. It's called The Snow Leopard, and it's by an author called Peter Mattison. It's the author's trip to the Himalayas together with a biologist called Schaller, and it's his search for this beautiful cat, the snow leopard, which actually he doesn't find in the end. As I'm giving you the outcome of the end of the story. It's a beautiful book, which is a mixture of travel description, but also it's an inner and an outer journey at the same time, and it's beautifully written. I really loved this book. It was given to me many years ago by one of my co-authors, Günther Gerngross, who unfortunately passed away last year. And I'm now rereading this book. I think it's an absolutely beautiful book.
Snow Leopard.
The Snow Leopard, yes.
Okay. I'll keep it in mind. Do you have a favorite warm-up activity?
A favorite what?
Warm-up activity.
Warm-up activity.
Yeah, I think it's about English lessons.
I have a favorite one, but when it comes to the teaching of teenagers, in connection with reading, one warm-up or lead-in activity I use a lot is I ask students to go to a certain page in the book which contains a text that we're going to read. This is an interesting piece of text. Learning is brain change. This text is right. Now, I asked them to put in some kind of pen and close the book. And then I tell them, I'm going to give you 8 seconds. When I say go, open the book, and during these 8 seconds, try to understand as much as possible about this text, which is, of course, an impossible task. So look at the images, look at the titles, look at whatever you can see, and then when I say stop, close your book again. So I would say go, they look at the text, okay, and after 8 seconds I say stop, and then I say call out words. And I write down words on the board, words they call out, and then I get them to work in pairs or in small groups and try to figure out what this text is all about. This is a fascinating advanced organizing activity that you will see when you try it out, gets students to be totally focused. And it's fun, and it also develops speed reading skills at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. Nice. I love that activity. I'll try that. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't see more questions. There are loads of thank yous, loads of insights, as teachers say, and they love the ideas, and the approach is amazing. It was extremely useful, some of the teachers say.
Well, thank you, Tatiana, and thank you all so much for this lovely feedback. Stay healthy, the same, of course, to your family and to your students, and I hope you can go back to your classrooms, becoming once again aware of what a great activity it is to teach students, what a great challenge it can be sometimes when we teach teenagers. And I wish you a lot of fun and a lot of rewarding experiences. Thank you so much. And one day I hope to be with you and stand physically in front of you and give a talk again in Ukraine. Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah, I hope that will happen soon. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Tatiana. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.